budgeting from a top level, all the way from your business, all the way down to the different sections like your marketing, really important. When we kind of take a step back to some of the early sessions that I was talking about being purposeful and planning things out, in a lot of ways, the marketing that you will do will be impacted by your budget. We have a saying that we've often said internally: the budget often determines the strategy, because it'll often affect how big or how large or certain things that we're able to do within that budget. So that's why when you're planning your marketing, you really should have some idea of budget, even if it's a range or it's an idea of I'm willing to spend this much, because it'll help you rule out certain marketing channels, right? We were talking about marketing channels yesterday. And some marketing channels will have a lower cost of entry. Some will have a higher one. And if you're going to do a campaign, you need to have the budget for that. You need to have the cash reserves for that. And then when you're budgeting, keeping in mind, hey, I'm going to spend this money on marketing. Marketing always has a degree of risk. There's always an element of this. We have certain things we know to expect and certain things we don't know. And so there's always that element of knowing I'm going to budget this money as an investment in my company. And so taking it one step away from the marketing budget for just a moment, I'm a big believer in your organization, your company, having a strong budget that you follow, that you use, that you work with, that you know. I went through the We Venture Ignite program a few times, really early, especially early in the business. And I still remember in one of those first meetings when I was sitting there with the mentors, and I hated the numbers. The number side of things scared me. If it was marketing, if it was websites, or it was branding or whatever, great, let me tackle it. But my own budget, my own numbers, my spreadsheets, it wasn't the spreadsheets so much as it was the financial statements, just made me anxious, frankly, because I didn't understand them. And so one of the best things I ever did was, at the encouragement of my mentors, was really dig into your numbers. They're not as scary as you think. Understand them. It doesn't have to be as overwhelming as you feel like it is. And so I spent a lot of time with our accounting firm. I spent a lot of time with some mentors, began to really break down our budget and our numbers in a way that I could understand them. Because I truly believe if you're going to lead an organization well, you really need to understand what your numbers are, how that impacts your decisions. You could be a great leader, but if you don't understand your finances, you could make promises. You could you could lay out strategies that won't work. You run out of money. You need to understand, where's the cash flow? How's this working? Where am I spending money and why? If you can't afford to allocate marketing budget and wait for a return, be careful. Don't do that, right? You need to lean on the less cost-heavy marketing techniques, right? So it's just keeping that in mind. I've had conversations in the past with business owners that were ready to throw lots of money at their marketing. And I said, great, but where are you at now in your business journey? And they were very, very early, and it would have been a detriment if they were spending lots of money on the marketing before their product was ready, before they were ready. They needed some other elements. And so just keeping that in mind, it was funny. I was on a call this morning, both about kind of marketing and finances during a crisis. And I had Phil Hayes on the call, and he made the comment about, Josh is next. He's going to tell you to spend lots of money on marketing. And on one hand, yes, you should push forward and hard on marketing, especially when others are not. But you've also got to watch the budget and make sure that you're being wise with that. So marketing's an investment. Typically, the return isn't immediately. You've got to kind of gauge that. So I'm investing in long term, or I'm investing in short term, and I'm expecting these kind of returns. All of that to say, your grand scale budget's super important. You need to understand that actually first before you could really dive too deep into budgeting for your marketing. So I've got to first know I can allocate X from my main budget, my company budget, my organization budget, into my marketing budget. Great. Now I know that number, maybe for the year, for the quarter, for the month. Now I know what that number is. Now I need to budget from a marketing perspective. So again, before you even get to this and you get excited and start throwing money at the marketing plan, top level, you need to know, what is my overall budget? How much am I allocating to marketing? And then you need to say, how am I spending that money as effectively as I can? So budgeting, super, super, super important. I can't say enough about budgeting in general for your business and understanding that. Personally, I budget at home. My wife and I, believe it or not, she tells everybody this. We do our budget. We review our budget together as a couple every week. Every week. If we don't do it, it's like not taking out the trash, right? I get in trouble, right? But I run our budget. I organize it just in terms of here's the numbers, here's the data, here's what we've decided as a couple to spend our money on personally. And then we check in every week. Where are we at? What have we decided to do? And we're very much in alignment with our personal budget. And that's just part of that is my wife loves understanding all of that aspect of it, and part of that is I really am very purposeful with everything I do, and so understanding that a budget is just important in your financials, both personally, business, and marketing. So, anyways, I will get off the kick on budgeting. My team can tell you that I'm a little bit crazy about when it comes to budgeting and encouraging others to do so. Again, with their businesses and personally, I believe in it so much that we pay for budgeting tools for our team if they want them. To use personally. We'll pay for it. I just believe so strongly in people really being purposeful with finances in general. Again, that's not really, I'm not going to head down that too far, but very, very important on the budgeting side for your marketing. So let's get to that. I'll share the screen real quick and pop over to Prep Kit. And there are some examples and ideas in here on how you can work that. We do include a spreadsheet here. If you click here, you can get to a spreadsheet online, download that. It's an Excel file. And what that has is it has kind of these columns. It has the channels and then the months. And the idea is that you would budget per channel per month, right? So you'd say, I'm going to do paid search. I'm going to spend X amount of dollars on that per month. Or I'm going to do Facebook ads, and that's how much I'm going to spend on it. Then you have your total budget. So often what's easiest to do there is to start with a total number and break that down over the year. And keep in mind that often you'll have a monthly spend budget on certain things, and that can fluctuate, right? So some clients are seasonal, and they want to spend more or less during certain times. Some clients, they'll ramp up or ramp down depending on where they're at. If they know that during certain times of the season they're at capacity and they couldn't sell anymore, well, then we might ramp down our spend. Other times they might want to ramp it up, right? And so those are just things to keep in mind when you're building a budget. But when you're looking at this budget, it should include your channels, and it should include any other expenses related that you would categorize marketing, right? So, for example, if you are putting in your Facebook ad spends, but also maybe some printing for doing brochures or business cards, maybe you're doing a direct mailing, maybe you need some miscellaneous budget, kind of be a catch-all. If you're mailing out letters to clients or prospects directly, maybe you need to write in some postage, and that's a line item. You want to break down, this is what I'm expecting to spend and in what areas, right? And so knowing this, and again, kind of taking a step back, what is that number? I think Kathy asked it yesterday. How much should you be spending? Best practice says somewhere between 2 and 10% of sales should go back to the marketing budget. That's a huge range, right? 2 to 10%. It's just enormous range. And while I've worked with some people who do the full 10, somewhere in the middle is normally best. Again, people often ask, what do we spend? Where is our budget? Depending on where we're at, we're somewhere in that 6 to 8% we personally spend of our revenue back into marketing. And that's generally what we apply back to our own marketing. We believe in practicing what we preach. If marketing is important, we should be spending money on that. And the way we look at that, again, when we're budgeting that in the line item, is this is set aside for this sole purpose. I'm not allocating it to multiple things. I'm not moving it around. And there are times you move things around in your budget, and that's good. That's why you have a living, working budget. But understanding that I'm committing to this number, that allows me to build a plan. If the number changes, if my budget changes, I'm going to change my plan, right? And so it's something that we encourage clients. That you're building out your plan and deciding your channels and all of your things, and you build out your budget here, then I want to encourage you that if you change your budget, your plan will change, right? And that's a piece just to consider. If you go to this link here, and let me open that up and share that with you guys. I'll just kind of pull up the spreadsheet here. Great. Everybody see that? Everybody pull up the Excel sheet there. That should come up. And it's just a basic Excel sheet to work from, where, again, different categories, channels, expenses are over here on the left, and then you could fill it out over the year. And so we use something similar for clients. It's more of a shared document. It's in Google Docs, but this was something we put together for the downloadable, where you can kind of see where is my spending throughout the year. What do I plan to do? And I normally encourage you to do this based on your fiscal year. So if your fiscal year is not January, December, you could change the months. But then I would also recommend doing this several months prior to your fiscal year, having it well planned out. We've got clients. I got one client, for example, whose fiscal year is actually it's January to December, but we start planning in September or so. Like we start looking at the budget, what was last year's. We're looking at the revenue changes, the percentages. We actually had what we use for him is a lot more robust, but it actually has a percentage that pulls in from their total revenue. So we know what he'll do is he'll put in his projections for the year based on years and years and years of doing business, and then we'll automatically fill in each month's budget based on a percentage of spend, right? This percentage that he wants to spend on marketing. And so we use an industry average for that. And then that allows us to know, hey, we're working with X amount of dollars. And so often when we're sitting down and planning out or adapting the marketing strategy, we're looking and saying, okay, where can we move things around? If we don't spend this, we can spend this over here. And that's what all of this is for. And so that kind of gives you the general gist of why budgeting is important, why we should do it. I have some specific examples of things I'm going to get into in a minute, but I'll take a breath. And does anybody have any questions so far on kind of budgeting, budgeting in general, how to choose the amount you should spend on marketing, and then also how to choose where to spend it, kind of the budgeting aspects. Any questions so far before I keep going? I kind of race through that part. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Any other questions, feel free to pop them in there. So some things to think about. I kind of hit on this a little bit. Your marketing budget, what you spend there, is an investment. Very rarely do you spend on something and you get a return right away, right? So it's always going to be different. You're going to see different results for different things. I mentioned it, I think yesterday I mentioned things like SEO are more long-term. I'm going to build that over time. I'm going to see results from that later, right? I run pay-per-click ads. It's not going to be immediate, but I'm going to see much faster results once the clicks start rolling, right? And there's a lot of different things in between. I do a mailer. Most of the results from a mailer are going to happen relatively quickly. However, I've got to sustain that, and there's a whole discussion about how often should I mail, when will I see the better results, and things like that. That's a whole discussion for another day, but different things are going to have different rates of return. I maybe sponsoring an event, I might not get it immediate, but maybe if I'm a sponsor at an event where I'm speaking or I'm very involved and there's an offer and I might get a result faster for my investment as a sponsor of that event. And so just being aware that, hey, this thing I'm doing may have return later, right? And so I want you to look at your marketing budget more as an longer term investment in your business, right? So when you're allocating that money, I want you to, so this is a good principle to look at. When you do any kind of investment outside of your business, right? Let's say you're buying stocks, you're investing in things and whatever it is. And if that investment, that medium you're investing in, let's say stock market, and I've been asked this before by some friends, hey, I want to start investing in the stock market, and I'm not getting into any details there in terms of I'm not offering advice on the stock market, but especially right now. But what I often say is, if you're going to get into investing, and that investment has a risk, only invest what you would be okay with losing. I mean, that's just the nature of investing. You need to mitigate risk, choose wisely. How well can you handle risk? But where people get in trouble is they bet too much, right? They bet everything, right? And then now it's a gamble, right? Whereas an investment says, I have some money set aside. I'm going to invest that. I understand my risk. I've calculated it. I know where I'm at. I'm in it for the long haul, right? So that's investing. Same thing with marketing. I want you, when you're looking at your marketing budget, be careful. And it sounds funny coming from a marketer, spend more money on marketing is what you think I'm going to say. But yes, but do it when you know you can maybe wait for that return. We have absolutely done marketing that paid off years later, right? There's times we've done marketing that paid quickly, but most marketing, if done right, is thinking long-term. It's thinking results over a long period of time. It's thinking, if I do this now, I'm increasing my credibility. I'm increasing my brand awareness. I'm doing lead gen, yes, but my lead gen is actually getting better the more other stuff I've done and awareness stuff I've done, et cetera. And so what I want to encourage is to look at marketing absolutely like it should have ROI, but also understand that some things are going to have ROI later. I think I mentioned it on the first call. I see a hand up. Does somebody putting their hand up have a question? If so, let me know in the chat or the Q&A box. If you've got a question, let me know what you got. I mentioned this before, 3.5 years ago, Scott was at an event and handed one of our cards out, and they kept it and they put a sticky note on it. And that was a networking event that I probably paid a fee for. A membership we probably paid to be there. And 3.5 years later, we got a result. That's why it's important to stay the course. That's why it's important to know kind of what is my plan here, right? So that's why I really want you to look at marketing as an investment. I'd say one of the mistakes that happens with budgeting for marketing is that the expectations are not correctly set. This is something we're really, really big with our clients, is not over-promising. When you're doing a marketing effort, there's a level of risk, there's a level of time that needs to pass, and there's a level of reward, right, in what we're going to accomplish. But it's setting that tone and setting that expectation correctly and saying, let's work on this together, is super important, whether you're working with an agency or doing it yourself. And so when you're looking at your marketing, I want you to spend what you feel is aggressive in terms of creating momentum and growth within your company, but I also don't want you to spend so much that it hurts your company, right? And so another good conversation around marketing budgeting is during the crisis. Marketing, I mean, it's well known in our space. Everybody jokes about it. Marketing's the first thing to go off a budget sheet, right? Everybody can agree with me here. No hard feelings. Marketing is typically one of those things where, cut it. I can trim my marketing budget back, and I can afford things when times are hard. And I don't necessarily fully disagree with some of that, because theoretically, when you go through your budget, you do need to shave a little bit if you're in a hard time. We did it ourselves when we went fully remote and the COVID was happening. We're like, okay, we need to trim our marketing. We trimmed everything back. We didn't just go to marketing and say, okay, it's gone. We said, all right, let's trim a little from there. Let's trim a little from here. We cut in a lot of areas. We didn't just cannibalize one area. And then we said, all right, what can we do marketing wise and this is where the opportunity arises during a crisis, is if you can do more marketing, more creative marketing than your competitors when they're not doing anything, they cut, you didn't, you can get ahead. And so those are some things we've looked at during this time, is what can we do? We've done a lot of stuff internally that has been very labor focused. A lot of content creation, our social media, for the 30 days after we all went remote, we did a ton of social media. We're still doing a lot, but we did a lot in that 30-day period. A lot of fun stuff and engaging stuff. And we just pivoted our focus a little bit, knowing that we were, it was a morale booster for us, but it was also some marketing. And we got out and we got in front of people, and we just did it differently, right? And I kind of hit on that a little bit on some previous sessions. But your budget, it needs to be flexible, but you also need to understand, again, you change the budget, you change the strategy. So all of those things to think about when you're thinking budgeting, right? So any questions so far? Any questions so far? I don't think I see any yet. If not, I will keep rolling. All right. So some of the other things to think about when you're working on your marketing budget and you're adjusting it, because again, just like any other plan, you should be willing to adapt, right? So I was talking earlier today on a previous webinar about business planning and how you really need to be looking at it. And it was specifically with how budgeting is important for overall budgeting. But I was talking about playing chess. And when you play chess, you're thinking many moves ahead, or should be thinking many moves ahead. I have a friend who used to joke, like, I'm not playing chess with Josh. He thinks 38 moves ahead. And while he was joking, in some cases he was right. What I was taught when you play chess, that when you sit down in front of your opponent, the chess set is laid out. No moves have been taken yet. And I picture how checkmate is going to be, right? So some people say, well, that's crazy. You couldn't possibly know. You don't know what's about to happen. You're going to do any one of millions of potential possibilities. True. But I establish a goal. I plan to checkmate him, his king over here in his castle side, and I'm expecting to do it with my knight here, my bishop over here. Okay, that's my plan. And then as the game unfolds, I'm adapting. I'm changing, right? And so it's not like I'm building a new plan every time, but I have a plan. I know what I want to do, and it begins to adapt. and I adapt to the moves as my opponent makes their moves. It's kind of how business is. It's how marketing is. You have a plan, you have that long-term plan, but being willing to flex that strategy as you go is powerful, right? That agility. And so you may be doing marketing, and I've used this example a few times. We had a client where we had a large amount of their budget on Google Ads, and that was really their focus. They had a competitor, specific competitor they wanted to beat, both in paid ads and organic search. And we said, okay, that's great, and you're winning, but you're getting more revenue out of your Facebook ad spend. And so we went back to the budget and we moved some ad spend over, and we said, all right, what do you think about this? We got them to approve it, and we switched the budget over. It was more effective. And that's just frankly, that's how it was. And so being willing to say, I've got my budget set, but being willing to move things around if the results say otherwise, right? If the results say, hey, we thought this was going to be more effective, but actually this is more effective. Being willing to move that around, that's why it's so important to have the goals in place, knowing what's important for your business. It's important to have your tracking and analytics in place. So what numbers am I tracking and how am I tracking it, right? So how do I know a campaign is working? And again, it comes back to the KPIs you chose. Some campaigns for me, I find it effective for RPS. I think it's a win if there's a good reach. More people saw our name, so later when they are looking for what we need, because here's the thing, with our service, the timing is important. We show up and we say, hey, if somebody sees our webinar, somebody sees our stuff, maybe one of our team members is talking to them about doing a deal. If the timing isn't right, if they're not ready to allocate budget, if their business growth is just not ready, well, the timing needs to be right for us. So a lot of times for us, the doing the marketing that prepares somebody so that when they are ready, they call us is just as effective, right? And so I've got to be thinking some of the marketing I'm doing now, some of the people I'm in front of now, or our team's in front of now, may not buy for a year or two or three, right? We got one now where we just closed a little piece of a project, but it is looking like quite a sizable project after that, and that was 3.5 years ago that he had one of our business cards. So it's keeping in mind that, again, this investment, we're going to adjust, we've got this long-term plan, but it's never, if you set that in stone, then you kind of defeat there's this concept in marketing. There's two concepts in marketing that I want to share. One is you need to try it long enough to actually see results out of it, right? So there's a lot of times, I sent one mailer, it didn't work. Okay, well, if direct mail truly is a channel that's going to work for your space, you actually need to send several. It's not going to work with one hit. Then you look at, okay, well, I ran Google Ads for a couple weeks. It sucks. Okay, gotcha. And maybe it does for your industry or whatever. But have you done iterations? Have you done tests? Why is it not converting? Is maybe the landing page not great? Do we need to adjust other things? So there's kind of that side of things. You need to do things and test things and really flesh them out and make sure, well, did we do a good job with it? Have we fully fleshed it out? But then there's also being willing to adapt, right? To be flexible and say, that isn't working. I'm going to pivot and try something else. Okay, that strategy didn't work. I got something out of it, but it wasn't what I wanted. I'm going to pivot and try something else. And so just when you're looking at your budget, those are all things to consider, if that makes sense. So, it's like playing chess. You say, I know where I'm going. This is what I want to do, but being willing to adapt that strategy based upon what the market does, what your competitors do, what your clients want, or what they're looking for. Being willing to, we had a good idea. Let's do this thing. I know internally, we just had a recent idea that we're going to pivot some of our marketing. It's a drastic pivot. We're actually going to be moving some of the marketing budget over to another strategy altogether, and it'll affect some things. We'll spend a little less over here, and we're going to spend some more over here. It's just a different strategy. We had an idea. We're excited. The team's behind it, and we're going to pivot. And so, again, everything when you're doing a plan, it's always more like a guideline, right? Like the old Pirates of the Caribbean movie. They'd be more like guidelines. And your budget, that's what your budget is. It's a guideline. It keeps me within what I need to work with, but I really need to treat it also to be flexible. I do the same thing with our company budget, right? It's a guideline. It's guiding us forward. It gives me an idea. I know where everything is going to be spent, but we can adapt that plan. We can say, you know what, we need to do this sooner. We're ahead of our sales goals, so we need to make this higher a little sooner. Or, we're here and we actually had a little higher profit margin here, so let's spend a little bit more in marketing. Let's do that. Let's do this. Those are the kind of decisions you're making at a high level on your company budget. But then when you get down and you say, all right, now I'm in my marketing budget, you make the same kind of decisions. They're just different. They're just different. So I've spent plenty of time on the content. Do we have any other budgeting questions, any other questions at all on what we've covered so far today? If you have questions on other marketing topics, that's fine as well. Tomorrow we'll actually be hitting on an implementation strategy. So we've run through a plan, we've run through our messaging and defining that and defining the channels and the budget and all this stuff. And so tomorrow I'm going to talk more about, well, what's the implementation plan? How do I plan to get this done, right? So so often, and we have to do it too, right? I mean, we marketing agencies are notorious for not like doing their own marketing. Like it's hard because you get so busy and you want to serve the clients and you know all these things, and revenue is important. And it's something we've committed to really early on was, how do we spend time on our marketing? How do we make sure we're investing not only some dollars but some time? And that's the implementation plan. And so I'm getting excited about it already. I'm going to start jumping ahead and sharing on that. But creating that plan is important. It's one sheet in the prep kit, but it's very, very important. And I'm going to spend a full session on that tomorrow. And then the following day, the goal for the following day, the final session, is just to review everything we've talked about. But I'm hoping to really make that very dynamic. So if you've been working on your prep kit and your worksheets and everything else, feel free to send those to me, to share them. I'm planning on doing more back and forth, allowing people to talk and whatnot on that last session. And that's really how can I really guide you to really get a lot of value out of what we've been learning. So that's the purpose of that last session. Kathy threw a question in here. Let's see. Can you say more about how to know when to give a campaign or effort more time and when to start making adjustments? Ooh, that's a good one. So first of all, it's hard to know for certain, right? I mean, everything in marketing, even areas that are tried and true, there's still a level of experimentation, right? And so what I would say is, if you've done your due diligence and you've thought through, yes, this is my right audience, yes, people are seeing it, is I would look at the numbers and decide at which point is it breaking down, right? So let's start with, is the channel getting in front of people? How many people are seeing my effort, right? So my campaign. So track that first. How many impressions am I getting, right? So that's an awful number to end at, but it's a good number to start at. How many people are seeing it? Okay, great. Enough people are seeing it. I'm not worried about that. Okay, how many people are maybe engaging with that? Are they clicking on it? Are they doing, whatever kind of campaign it is, are they engaging with it at some level? Are they clicks? Are they hits to my website, right? Again, awful endpoint, but a good measurement of where are we headed. Because part of this is understanding where it breaks down, right? Because it isn't cut and dry what worked, it didn't. Well, I want to know why. Where did it break down? Kind of like, let's say we're trying to find a leak, right? Plumbing. Maybe we're doing plumbing. We're trying to find a leak. Well, you work your way through that. Where is that leak at? I'm checking. Nope, it's before this. So it's after that. Okay, it's somewhere in here. Kind of the same thing with a campaign. Where is it breaking down? All right, people are engaging and they're visiting my landing page. They're visiting my web page, and then I get nothing. Okay. So we got enough impressions. People are interested and they're clicking. The cost per click is good, but nobody's converting. Nobody's calling me. Why? Right? So that helped me narrow down, why is my campaign not working? Now I can look at it and say, maybe my message is awful. Or not awful. Maybe it's just not working, right? Maybe my offer isn't working. Maybe people are coming in and they're not ready to close. Maybe I need to change the wording on that landing page or the ads. Maybe, because here's what happens sometimes too, an expectation to be set up for when they see the ad, an expectation of what's next, and then they get there and it's different, right? If it differs, if it feels different, maybe they don't feel like they can trust it because the site's not super, good. Maybe the copy just didn't appeal to them. The ad got their attention, but then they got to the next step and it was like, not really for me. Maybe they're saying later, right? They're coming back to it later. So these are all things we want to understand and measure. Where is the campaign breakdown? If I've got all these tools and I know that, when they click through to that landing page, they click right off. Okay, something's wrong, right? there's a misunderstanding when they click through. They didn't like the site. Maybe the site's broken, right? That's happened before. I was running a campaign for a huge company years ago, and they were super tight about their analytics. They wouldn't let us in. They wouldn't give us access. You couldn't really test a lot of things. But we set up a campaign for them and drove it to their landing page that they built. I did not build this landing page. And we had a goal, a set of a certain amount of conversions, certain amount of people reaching out. He was a really big campaign. I think we wanted 700 people to reach out. We hit it barely. I mean, it was like 705. It was like barely. We really barely made it across the finish line of what kind of we had agreed was a target and a goal. And we sit down meeting with them like, man, we made it. All this stuff. And we started talking about it, and some conversations were had about mobile. And a couple of the members on the other team, on the client said, well, mobile isn't really a big deal for us. And I pulled up their landing page on my phone just out of curiosity, and on that landing page, you could not convert. The button didn't work. The actual I'm interested button, like sign me up, did not work on mobile devices, right? And then there was no way to contact it because it was a landing page with no contact information. So literally the only way to convert on this site was this one button. You clicked it, and I think it went black, if I remember correctly. And so I said, hey guys, this is a problem. And they're like, oh no, most of our traffic's not mobile anyways. And I said, I would disagree with that. I haven't seen your analytics yet, but could you pull them up on the screen? You won't let us in, but and they pulled them up, and sure enough, 70% of their traffic was mobile. 70% of the traffic that was coming to that landing page was mobile. And can you imagine what the different result would have been if people could actually have converted on that page? Now, I'm sure there was some that said, oh, this isn't working, and they went to their desktop and they found it and it worked. But then I'm sure there were some that went, this doesn't work, I'm out of here, right? And so in that case, we figured out that campaign was not working as well, because of a broken landing page, a broken system. So hopefully that answers the question, Kathy. It's really tracking down where is it broken. If at the end of the day everything appears to be working well and we're just not getting good results, it may be time to move on a campaign. But you also want to flesh it out and make sure that you've really done your due diligence on that. So I think that answers that question. Peter threw out not a budgeting question, but I'm interested in learning more about the model you described yesterday. A primary audience for us is DoD. We reach this audience both through direct sales and system integrators. Awesome. Okay. So the system integrators are perhaps another audience for us. Agreed. 100% agreed. I'm supposed to hit answer live here. I don't know if it makes a difference. But we don't do a lot on targeting our channels to these intermediaries. I suspect this multiple distribution model is not unusual, but it seems like it would have a large bearing on how the rest of the marketing program is organized. Yes, I love this question. This is awesome. So it is going back a little bit into the strategy stuff, which is fine because nobody else has asked budgeting questions, so I don't mind. This one's cool to me because one long time ago when I was kind of first getting my career going, I had my first web business. I was like 18. I was out networking, and I was I was learning about standing up and doing the networking talks, and you had to say who you were, what your business was, and who was a good lead for you, right? The leads groups. I did a lot of those. That was kind of how I learned to talk and get in front of people and do business stuff. And I remember one time I kind of had this aha moment, and I said, this is what I do, websites and all this stuff. And the good lead for me, and I said, I'm going to share it too. One is a small business that needs this, and this, right? And it was my target at the time. I said, but even more important to me are those that connect me to those people. And I named a few people in the room who had done that connection point, that I would love introductions to people like Richard Martin and like this person, like these people, because they have clients that are good for me. And there was the connector, right, as an intermediary. So I completely appreciate that. And I would actually say, Peter, we do a lot of that too, where we have direct sales and then a lot of relationships and things we build where people get directed to us. Now, in our case, it's more of a referral model and things like that. Your case is a little different because the system integrator is kind of bringing that to you, probably as a sub of some sort, or they're using it as a product, is my guess. And so, yes, I would say those are two different audiences, 100%. One, they have different concerns and needs. And so the end user wants to hear something different than maybe that middle, almost distributor, probably the wrong word, but kind of, they care about something else. They want to know that they're protected, that you're going to be a good partner for them. You're not going to go around them and steal their business. So they're going to care about your integrity and how you approach that and what your deal structure looks like. And again, commissions or whatever they make on it, right? So how does that make them look good? That is a good one. They're going to want to know, will you make them look good to their customer? Or will you try to, will you do something weird or underhand? There's just different concerns. They care about different things. When you're building that audience model, you're thinking, because I wrote out, what do they care about? What must they believe, right? So that DoD client is gonna be thinking certain things. They're going to be thinking, so here's one, DoD, often government contracts, credibility, how do they look, right? Experience, all these things they're thinking. So credibility, let's use that one. On the other, the system integrator, they're going to think credibility, but they're actually going to think about it a little different. Excuse me. That DoD client is going to say, are they credible? The other one is going to say, are they credible and will they make us look credible? Right? A little deeper, a little different question. Very, very similar, but the messaging will be different, right? So now imagine your guys going in and telling a system integrator, or your marketing is telling them, we're credible, right? And the system integrator goes, okay, cool. But if your guy goes in and says, hey, we're credible, and here's the ways we make you look really credible because you're working with us, and yada, 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 here's the tools we provide. Well, all of a sudden, they're interested, right? They've got a little, their ears perk up because you said something that mattered to them. Now, again, the credibility thing mattered, but when you said it a little different, it mattered more to them, right? They're thinking, you're right. You can help me get more deals, not just this deal, but I'm going to look good working with you. You're going to make me look good. So therefore I'm going to get more deals. So you build, again, comes back to that one question. It's one of my favorite questions in the sales process and in the audience building process is, what must they believe to take action, right? So what must DoD believe to take action, and what must that system integrator believe? They're similar, but they're different. So yeah, I think it has a large bearing on the marketing programs. I think you are probably going to have different campaigns to get to them. No, I know you would have different campaigns. A lot of times the DoD stuff is you're not allowed to do a lot of things. Like we've got clients where we have to be a little hands off on some things, but you do a lot for credibility presentation and how it looks, and you spend a lot more time on that. Whereas we would be a lot normally more free on the integrator side to go and say, all right, we can aggressively go after that side of things a little differently. So you'd actually have your hands a little less tied sometimes with different markets as well. So Peter, that was an awesome question. I love it. I love it. Any other questions? Let's see. Oh, we threw another one. Great input. We should do more on speaking. Sorry. Should do more. Oh, yeah. Sorry, you're just replying. Was it a question? I'm trying to read it as a question, and I was confused. Agreed. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people in your space, companies in your space, forget or miss, is that opportunity to do that. Because there's so much. I was just talking to a friend of mine, when was that? Friday, about an idea he has, and it's kind of similar where he would go through an integrator, and that would actually be his primary model. He's got a concept, a product line he wants to roll out. But his whole model would be going through integrators in that case. So really great question. We are a few more minutes here if there's any other questions. Otherwise, I will begin to wrap it up. Any other questions? Any other questions? If not, then I will get us wrapped up and on to the next thing. All right. So tomorrow at noon, we'll be talking implementation. How do we take everything we've been talking about and actually make sure it moves further than just our desk drawer? I know you have a stack of papers for the prep kit, and often, a lot of times after a series like this, you'll take it and you'll stick it in your drawer and you won't look at it again for a year. And that happens I've done it myself. I actually, just because of all this, had a little extra time, and I had a stack of papers this thick that were all ideas and things I had learned at different webinars or in-person events. I had gone up to Nashville last year to take a course on leadership. I had all these papers and things, and I finally had time to go through them and whatnot. And so I know that some of these prep kits are going to end up in a stack of papers somewhere, get shelved, and that's okay. I know that's going to happen, but I would encourage you, attend tomorrow. We'll talk about an implementation plan. What is the timing of that, and how and when will it get done? And it's okay if that's much later, or it's tomorrow, or it's the next day, or it's whatever. I just had a conversation with one of my leaders a couple ago. They were saying, wow, I've got a lot on my plate. I'm not sure I'm going to get all this done. And they're kind of stressing out about it. And I said, well, let's plan on what's most important. what needs to get done first, what can wait till next quarter, next year. That's okay. Some of these things are important and will be good for our growth, but maybe we do them later. And so I believe one of the things with implementation, I'm jumping ahead again, is prioritizing what are those important things that are going to create value for our organization that we need now and what's later. So I'm going to dive into a lot of the implementation stuff. The fun thing with that is I'll be sharing a little bit about client experiences, what they've done, but also I'm really going to focus on just us and what we've had to do to make sure we implement our own stuff. I like using us as an example because it's kind of like comes down to practice what you preach. What are we doing with our own marketing and how have we ensured? And we're not perfect. There's been times where we're waiting on something or we're struggling to meet our own internal deadlines because we're working on client stuff, and that's normal. But having that internal accountability, that internal strategy to get it done is important. So I'm looking forward to covering that tomorrow. Again, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. Have a great day. And as always, stay awesome.